Last night, we got a pretty important episode for The Last of Us Season 2. This is the episode that immediately follows what happened in Episode 2. Now, I'll be honest, this is a much slower episode than I was originally expecting. There's a good bit of stuff that is new additions to the series that wasn't in the original game, and there is some changes that were made, but I think one of the biggest standouts is the 3 months of time that passes. It seems like they really take a bit of a breath. Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin said that they really wanted to give the character respect and give us time to grieve the loss of that character. Now, mind you, this is episode 3, which means there's only 4 episodes left in the season. So there's really not much time left to tell the rest of the story that they're wanting to tell in the season 2. Wherever they decide to end it within the story of The Last of Us Part 2, wherever they're going to end season 2 and pick up from season 3, we really don't have much time left to get there, about 4 hours or so, maybe a little bit more if the finale runs longer, which kind of is a short amount of time with the things that we need to cover. So I think in that sense, I feel that this episode was a bit slower than I probably would have preferred it. But we'll see how things turn out. They're definitely taking the time to build up to what's to come in Seattle, which, if I had to guess, from here on out, it's going to just be nonstop. But it's not to say that I didn't like the episode. I think the episode was fine. There are things in this episode that I absolutely adored. One of those being Ellie putting coffee beans on Joel's grave. I loved that little addition. I thought that was such a perfect scene. That, for me, that one hit really hard. Honestly, that one scene might have been, for me, one of the most emotionally impactful scenes that we've gotten in this season of The Last of Us, which is really weird to think after, what we got in the last episode, but I don't know. For me, that one just hit just right. I think the combination of the cinematography, it takes place in such a beautiful open field. The colors, like this bright orange color, and then just the soft music it was just really good. Another really emotional scene that I absolutely loved was the addition of Tommy sort of saying his goodbyes. This is definitely a scene that we didn't get in the game. Now that I do see it, I kind of wish we would have gotten this scene in the game. I think I saw somewhere that this was a deleted scene from the game, but I wish I would have been able to see this scene play out. In the little bit where Tommy tells Joel, "Give my love to Sarah," that just gutted me. I know it's something that people talk about a lot, and it's probably one of the most talked about aspects of the Last of Us TV series, but I really do think that the acting in the show is really good. There's very little I have to complain about when it comes to the acting. I think most of the legit complaints about it are more related to creative decisions. I already went over the casting decisions earlier, and I still stand by what I said. I think that the casting overall is good. I don't have any actual legit complaints about the casting. I think that the actors are giving it their all, and you can feel that. You can see that they do really care about this. They care about this story, and they care about doing it justice. And I think that that's really important. And you can tell that these actors are extremely good at what they do. I really like the scene where Ellie, you see her go from this, expression on her face as she's leaving the hospital, and it just drops. And as she's walking down this hallway, she gets very serious, and that's the kind of acting that I really enjoy. I think that this episode, one thing that it does really well is it shines a light on the fact that it isn't just Joel and Ellie that are affected by these things. It's everybody. Everyone is affected somehow. And that adds to the overall narrative that people's decisions have impacts on everybody. We'll see that later with Ellie's decisions, with the Seraphites, with the wolves, with everybody. Everyone's decisions impact somebody else. That's what the story essentially is. It's people who make decisions and then the reactions to those. One interesting little bit is that we see the destruction that the infected cause, right? We see how many people are lost due to attacks from the infection. We see the absolute devastating force that is this infection, but that almost feels like it's not as important as what's lost due to other humans. That's always been a really big part of The Last of Us is, it's not just the infected that people have to worry about, it's other people. And almost it's more so, do we need to worry about other people? Because other people can trick you, other people can deceive you. It's other people who are almost more dangerous than the infected. And I think that that is something that they are doing a really good job about, showing in the TV series. Like, everybody is telling Ellie that we understand you, we understand why you want to do this, we want to do it too, but is it what's best for the community right now? And there is always a chance that there will be another infected attack. You really don't know. Look how many people were lost during the first one. You can really see the argument for both sides. On one hand, you really do want to avenge Joel. You want there to be justice for it. You don't want to just let somebody as important as Joel die with nothing to come of it. But on the other hand, do you really want to risk the safety of everyone else in the community for it? There is no good answer to this. And just like the end of season 1, there is no good decision when it comes to rescuing Ellie. That's the interesting storytelling that makes The Last of Us just so good. And I think that that is really what they're doing with Tommy's character more so in this show than they did in the game. One of the things that I'm just really not too sure about is Tommy's character motivation. Like, I understand why, but at the same time, I think I just preferred the Tommy that we got in the game, who was actually gung-ho to go after Abby and her crew. In the show, Dean is the one that tells Ellie who killed Joel and where they are, but in the game, it's actually Tommy who does that. Tommy was the one who was there initially. And I went back and I rewatched the scene from the game, and I do think that I preferred that version, where even though Tommy is saying that we need to think about the community first before we go make any rash decisions. We don't know exactly where they are. We don't know anything that we're going up against. In the end, it's really Maria who's just speaking through Tommy, and Tommy ultimately makes the decision that he's going to go. In the show, that isn't the case. In the show, Ellie and Dina go ahead before Tommy. Now, I do think Tommy will go to Seattle. I think Tommy is going to get Ellie back. I think that is where they're kind of setting that up, and it's going to be less of Tommy being vengeful and more so Tommy trying to do right by Joel and rescuing Joel's, daughter, Ellie. But yeah, it's an interesting change. We'll see what happens with it. Another thing that I was a little unsure about was the introduction of the Seraphites. The way we're introduced to them is we see a group of them fleeing from an area, I guess, trying to stay out of a fight, trying to avoid a fight. The group is led by a father and a daughter, which I didn't immediately make that connection, as it's supposed to sort of mirror Joel and Ellie. But after listening to the podcast, I think that's where they kind of pointed that out, and it makes sense. And another thing that they pointed out was that initially Abby told Joel that as a wolf, she's trained to not harm innocents who can't defend themselves. But with this introduction to the Seraphites, we see that that isn't necessarily true, and they gun down all of these Seraphites, even the little girl. And you can argue that, yeah, they had hammers, they could defend themselves, but how much is this girl with a hammer really going to do? I mean, it really just shows that these wolves that Ellie and Dina are about to, hunt down are actually very dangerous. And we do see the end shot that there are a lot of them. They're way more than they initially thought. Now, that's all well and good. I think that, yes, this does serve a really good purpose as to show that, these wolves are dangerous. But I think we're kind of taking away from the Seraphites a little bit. One thing that was always really cool about the Seraphites to me was that they were terrifying. The whistles that they do are just terrifying. You'll be walking one moment and then you'll hear a whistle off in the distance, and all of a sudden you're having arrows shot at you from every direction. I thought that their introduction in the show would have been something more tense and something more unassuming, something more terrifying, but instead they chose a different direction to go. And yeah, I mean, ultimately I'm here for it, but I'm just a little unsure. Overall, like, while I do think that this was a good episode, my feelings on it are a bit mixed. I'm a little worried that they might have slowed down a little too much for this episode. I don't think the whole episode needed to be this slow grieving process. I think you could have shortened it down to about half of the episode being that, and then we start to ramp up, towards the end a little bit. But we'll see how things pay off. I think, if I had to guess, this episode is probably going to be one of the least rated episodes, one of the lowest rated episodes. I just hate feeling like maybe we lost a little bit of time, especially with the fact that there's only 4 episodes left. I feel like one of the worries that people have is them rushing the story, and I have no problems with them taking time to develop characters and develop tone, anything like that, build onto this world. I think that's all well and good. I'm just really worried because I don't know where the season is going to end within the story. I just don't want it to feel like they're rushing to get to a certain point. There's a lot of really good bits that need to be included, I think. One aspect of it that I feel like I'm kind of missing, and I hate to kind of go back to this, but Tommy, one thing that I was really looking forward to in this season was to see Tommy absolutely wipe Seattle off a map. In the game, this dude becomes an absolute monster, and we don't really get to see a whole lot of that. And I was hoping that we were going to get to see more of that in the show, which it's still possible. We probably will get scenes of that if Tommy does in fact go after Ellie. But I think that, context wise, it's a little bit different. And another weird sort of like nitpicky thing is I feel a little let down with the lack of acoustic guitar. I know it's kind of a weird thing because, for me, the guitar is such a big part of Joel and Ellie's story. This is Joel keeping a promise to Ellie. And anytime there's a guitar within the story of The Last of Us, it kind of brings you back. It reminds you of the relationship between Joel and Ellie. And it reminds you why Ellie's fighting so hard. After so much violence and everything that happens, when Ellie picks up that guitar again, it brings you back to what was taken away. And the fact that we've seen so little of Ellie and Joel teaching Ellie how to play guitar, it just feels weird. Like, I know we're probably going to get scenes later on, and that's all well and good, but it just feels like a weird decision to not include it early on, especially the song Future Days, which I feel like I'm not alone in feeling like that song perfectly embodies the story of The Last of Us Part 2. That song is essential to the bones of the story, and it's absent from the show, and it just, yeah, I can really feel its absence, and it's starting to bother me a little bit, I think. So I really hope that, you know, within the next episode, I believe we do get the Take on Me scene next episode, but you know, we'll see. Anyway, I think that's all I got for now. Overall, I do think that I really enjoyed the episode. There hasn't been an episode I haven't liked. I think I wanted a little bit more urgency from it. But yeah, that's really it. So I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.